Hello, everyone. Welcome into another episode of Ben on Sports. As you can probably tell from the background here today, it's different from our field sports background. We're moving on to an entirely new sport. We're going to do our first episode of hockey, getting a good look at the NHL today. While some would say the NHL season technically started on Friday and Saturday with the Devils and Sabres in the Czech Republic and the international series, I would consider the real opening day to be Tuesday, October 8th, which at time of this recording is tomorrow. When you're listening to it, it'll probably be today or yesterday or whenever, but we're going to count Tuesday as the opening season, I think, instead of Friday. And we're just going to do an overview. We're going to look at all four divisions, look at both conferences. I might even predict some records, get some power rankings, look at some season long awards, and try to get through it here today. All right. So without further ado, let's get into it. Here we go. We're going to start off in the Eastern Conference with the Metropolitan Division. I think this might be the best division in hockey. It's right up there with the Central Division, which we'll get to a little bit later. But this is a pretty deep division. And as you can see from last year, Rangers, Hurricanes, Islanders, and Capitals all went to the playoffs from this division. Rangers actually number one seed in the East. 114 points last year. Hurricanes fought with them all the way to the end. A lot of good teams. There's depth. A lot of depth here. You can see Capitals made the playoffs at 91 points, but the Penguins were 88, Flyers 87, and even the Devils weren't that far off. So a lot of tight-packed teams. The Blue Jackets, I think, are going to fall behind everybody again. They have a lot going on even outside of hockey. That's why I have them roughly the same, maybe a little bit of regression. They are losing their best player to the unfortunate tragedy of Johnny Gaudreau, but I want to keep things light. Unfortunately, I don't think there's going to be a whole lot light about the Blue Jacket season unless they're playing incredibly inspired hockey. But I think where this division will be interesting. I think the Rangers are probably going to win it again. I think they'll get a little push. But then the Devils, I think, go from 7th to 2nd in this division and make a run. The Devils, a lot of phenomenal offseason moves. I think they're healthy. That might be the best thing. Maybe not a lot of phenomenal moves, but a lot of good moves. I think the team's getting older. I think they have the right coach in place. And I think we're really going to see the Devils take off this season. Breakout year in 2022, 2023. Didn't make the playoffs last year. I think they're making the playoffs again this year. They might even push the Rangers for first. Like I said, I think the Hurricanes are going to drop off a little bit. A lot of big names left in free agency. They still have most of their core together. I don't think they're going to be so bad that they fall out of the playoffs. But there is some concern for me with the Hurricanes. Last year, it seemed like it was the year, if they were going to win one, it seemed the year to win it with the core they have, and they weren't quite able to do it. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. Again, they lost some pieces. They're not going to lose so many that they're bad this year, but it's never good to lose more than you add, at least in my eyes. That's what the Hurricanes did. Let me go back up to my predicted standings here. I did 2 and 3 at Devils and Hurricanes. Let's go back up to the Rangers here. Won it last year. I don't know if they're going to break the 110 mark. I think they're definitely breaking the 100 mark in points. They didn't lose a whole lot. Maybe some trade line pieces, but I think the core didn't lose anybody. They didn't gain a lot either. They didn't make a lot of improvements, which is why I think they fall a little bit. If you're not constantly making improvements, to me, it's usually hard to get better, at least from a roster perspective. But I still think the Rangers are a really good team. They're really well balanced offense, defense. They have one of the best goalies in the league in Shesterkin. So I think they have all the pieces left to still be a really good team, still finish first. And as you can see here, the Capitals last year were kind of lovable or hateable underdogs. They made the playoffs with a negative 40 goal differential. Somehow, a lot of people were upset that they beat out 2 or 3 of the teams that they did. But at the end of the day, all they have to do is make the playoffs. Obviously, the big story with the Capitals this year is going to be, can Ovi hit Gretzky's? Can Ovi catch and pass Wayne Gretzky, the great one, the all-time NHL leader in goals? And I think he gets there. I think that the Capitals are very clearly trying to stay competitive while Ovechkin is there chasing the goal record. I think they have enough pieces around them where they can absolutely do it. Maybe not be a President's Cup I don't think they're that good. I don't think they're winning the President's Cup. They're not finishing with the most points, but I do think they can make the playoffs. I do think there's some stiff competition, but you can see I have them kind of right around, maybe a little bit better than they were last year. That defense is going to be much improved. They made some great additions over the summer in Chitron and Roy. I think that's going to help them a lot on the back end. They have a great goaltending tandem in Charlie Lindgren and Logan Thompson. I think that defense is going to be good. It's really going to come down to who on the offense steps up, how many of these young guys continue to get better for the Capitals. And again, can they get Ovechkin going early? Can he play like he did late last year when he got hot? Um, again, the Capitals I find to be an interesting team. That's why I'm spending a little bit more time on them, just because all-time great player with a lot of moving pieces around him. Again, Capitals I have in the postseason again. I have them the last postseason team in the Metropolitan. I don't know if you've picked up on it yet, but the teams in red are, and this is going to be consistent with every division, teams in red made the playoffs last year, are the teams I am predicting make it this year. Teams in black missed, and I have predicting missed this year. Let's go with the team I have predicted to finish fifth, the Penguins. I think it's just going to be more of the last 2 years. They're going to be right in it until the final day of the season and fall just short. Capitals and Penguins were top echelon. I mean, much of the 2010s, it was the rivalry, the Crosby Ovechkin, even the end of the 2000s, which it felt like for a couple of years, whoever won that game was making the Stanley Cup, winning the Stanley Cup. And I think both teams are kind of falling at the same time while still trying to stay competitive. I think the Penguins missed the playoffs for the third year in a row, but it would not surprise me if they make it. There's a lot of teams in the Eastern Conference I think are competing for the last 3 spots, the last 2 wild card spots. There's a lot of teams there, maybe as many as 8, as you'll see as I go through here, 8 to 9. A lot of competition for those wild card spots in the East this year, just like there has been the last couple of years. And I think the Penguins are definitely going to be in there. They got a lot of great players. Crosby, Malkin, as always have Letang. Erik Karlsson, I think he's going to rebound this season. But a lot of age on the Penguin side as well. Islanders, I think I have them missing the playoffs. I think they're still an incredibly good defensive team. I just still am worried about their offense. I don't see where it's coming from. And I just think there's too many teams that were right behind them this year to hold off, especially because I think they're going to have trouble scoring. The Flyers were a young team. They had a lot of cap space. They have a young team with a lot of potential. They have a great head coach, in my opinion, and they didn't sign anybody. They didn't make any big splash moves in free agency. Maybe that's part of their rebuild process. We're going to be talking about a rookie from Philly later on in this podcast, but they didn't really make any splash free agent signings, which I feel like a lot of rebuilding teams, when they have that breakthrough year where they're right there, they were a fringe playoff candidate, could have made the playoffs literally until the last game of the season, and they didn't do anything. So I think they're going to fall down a little bit and kind of be right where they were. But again, I think there's too many teams with them. And I kind of already talked about the Blue Jackets. I think they're heading straight to the lottery. Out of these 8 teams, they're the worst in their division, and you can't be the worst team in your division to make it. I think that their rebuild may have gotten prolonged a little bit. We'll see. But all in all, I think they're going to finish right around where they were, and they're going to keep hoping to build on some of the young pieces they have now. Moving on to the Atlantic, the other Eastern Conference division. Our Stanley Cup champions, the Panthers, came out of this division last year. We have the Lightning, who are kind of a falling dynasty right now. We have the Bruins, Maple Leafs. All 4 of those teams made it last year. Maple Leafs, Austin Matthews, the big American star, probably the best he is the best goal scorer in the game right now. We have a Red Wings team who last year, heartbreaking way to miss the playoffs last year with the empty net goal situation in Philly. The Sabres took a step back after seeming like they were going to make the playoffs and take a step as a young team. They kind of took a step back from where they were in 2023, similar to the Devils. The Senators, everybody keeps waiting for them to compete. They keep making signings, they keep trying, and they just keep falling short. I think, and as you can kind of see, I think that trend might continue this year. And then the Canadians, I think last year, 76 points was a good year for them. Very interesting dynamic going on there with the coach and some of the team and some of the players. A lot of young players getting better and better. And we'll see what happens in Montreal. I think it'll be interesting to watch. I don't think this is the year that they make the playoffs, the year that they show up, but I think this year could really build the next year where they are that team. I think the Panthers, despite some of the pieces they're losing pieces on offense and defense. They're losing some forwards and defensemen, but I still think a lot of their core is intact. And I think that I just don't think you can ever count the Stanley Cup champion out. I don't think the Panthers win it this year. That's a little bit of a spoiler, but I think they're good enough to definitely make the playoffs. And I have them winning this division again. I think the Maple Leafs finish second over the Bruins. I feel like the Maple Leafs and Bruins are always fighting for for the same real estate. They're going to be close every single year, it feels like, and I think they are again. But I think the Bruins lost more in the offseason than the Maple Leafs do. And the Maple Leafs, as long as they have Austin Matthews, they're going to be a competitor. Not only do I think the Maple Leafs and Bruins compete for a spot in the standings, I think Matthews and Pastrnak might compete for the Rocket Richard Trophy this year, something we will be talking about a little bit later. And the Lightning, I think they're going to keep going down in points. I think that trend's going to come, and I think the Red Wings are going to close that gap. I think the Lightning, I mean, they lost Stamkos. That's heartbreaking. He was one of their best all-time franchise, all-time great. Maybe not the best, but definitely at near the top. They still have Kucherov. They made some great signings to try and replace Stamkos. I think the Lightning are still going to be good enough to make the playoffs this year, but only time will tell. I think the Red Wings also did some good things this offseason. Steve Yzerman, sorry if I pronounced that wrong. I always struggle with it. I'm just not good with the YZ. But it was so difficult for me to leave the Red Wings out of playoffs because I think they very well could make it. I think they could make it over the Capitals. I think they could make it over the Lightning. And if the Red Wings coalesce as a team fast enough, they could very well make a run at the Maple Leafs and Bruins for a top 3 seed in the division where they don't even have to worry about the wild card. But I think the Red Wings are very good. I would not be shocked if they make the playoffs at all. But just quick pinch, I have them missing the playoffs just because of how good and how deep the Eastern Conference is, especially in this wild card battle. Sabres, again, I think they're good. I think these young guys are going to keep getting better, but I think they're another. I think next year is the year that the Sabres really, really come together and make the playoffs. I think a lot of these young teams, it's next year. I think this is going to be the last year of the proverbial old heads. So teams like the Bruins, teams like the Lightning, like the Capitals, even to an extent the Rangers, they have a little bit more youth. But I think next year is going to be the year a lot of these young teams come together, and it very well could be this year. I just think it's going to take one more year. And but the Sabres, led by Tage Thompson, they have a great offense. They should have a great offense. The defense got a little bit better last year. Goaltending, I think, is still a little bit shaky at times. But I think the Sabres are going to keep getting better. Although at time of this recording, they're last place in the entire NHL because they're 0-2. And the Devils are 2-0, and then everybody else is 0-0 and 0. So I don't know. But not a good start for them. But, I mean, 2 games into the season, there's still 80 more left. Senators are just going to senator. I mean, they've kind of been a meme, in my opinion, the last 3 or 4 years. Keep supposing to be good, and they're not good. They keep signing guys. At least they're trying. Too competitive, and I don't think the team is well-rounded or skilled enough to come together and do anything effective, or at least make the playoffs. So I think they upset some teams. Maybe they ruined some teams' chances, but I think by the end of the season, they're going to be done. And Canadians, I feel similar to the Sabres. I just think they're a little bit behind. I do think the Canadians, I'm being a little bit harsh to them. I have them going down in points, but I think they could go up in points. I think there's a very real world where that can happen. But people have to lose at some point, right? Like not everybody can gain points. People have to lose. And while my general trend is most of the top teams are losing points, I think the NHL is a little bit closer this year. I don't think it's a whole bunch of really, really good teams and really bad teams. I think we're going to have a little bit closer average than we did last year. The Canadians, it's hard to find easy wins, and like I said, they're still young, but they're building. And I think one more lottery pick, and then they start, as these guys start to age, they're really, really going to look good and be able to live up to expectations. All right, we're done with the Eastern Conference for now. We're going to move into the Western Conference, the Central Division. Like I said, I think it's between the Central and Metropolitan for the best division in hockey. I think the Central has the better, top tier names, but I think the Metro is deeper in terms of solid teams that could contend for playoff spots. Here you see last year, Stars first at 113, Jets with a rather surprising run to second at 110, Avalanche third, won a Stanley Cup not that long ago, but they're third at 107. Predators It's kind of snuck into the playoffs at 99. The Blues just outside at 92. The Wild not too far off. Coyotes, who I have them in here as the Coyotes again, but really it's the Utah Hockey Club. I kind of kept them the Coyotes because it's the same franchise, and I refuse to say Utah Hockey Club, because I think that's so stupid. It's like Washington football team. Just come up with a logo, man. It's not that difficult. It truthfully isn't. I would rather than be named the Utah Mormons than the Utah Hockey Club, to be quite honest. I think that's ridiculous. I digress. I'll get off of my soapbox. You're going to see the Utah Hockey Club listed as the Coyotes for most of this. And then the Blackhawks, with last year's number 1 overall pick, finished last at 52, picked in the lottery again. What do I think they're going to do in 24-25? I think the Stars are really good. I think they might be the best team in the NHL. They have elite goaltending. They have incredibly elite offense, and they have good defense, maybe even elite defense. I think they are definitely contenders for the President's Trophy this year, and the best and the most points in the NHL. I think the Stars are going to be really, really good. As you can tell, I have them 113 is a really good mark in points. I think I have them going up to 118. I have the Predators at 108. I really love they made the playoffs last year and took massive swings in free agency this year. I respect it. They're trying to win. And I think it's going to pay off for him, assuming it coalesces, right? My one hesitation always about teams that spend big in free agency to make a good team are, what if the team doesn't gel? What if they don't coalesce? What if they don't come together? Because that's always a possibility. I think the Predators will figure it out. I think they have enough veterans that they're going to get it worked out, and I think they're going to be really, really good. They might start off slow while they're figuring it out, but I think by the end of the season they're going to be really, really good. And I don't think anybody's going to want to play them when they do figure it out. I think the Predators probably actually had the best offseason in the NHL, at least on paper. Then we have the Avalanche, who they've been losing pieces slowly but steadily since their Stanley Cup, but they still have Nathan MacKinnon, one of the best players in the game. They still have the best defensive pairing in the game in Toews and Mikhail Makar. Makar and Toews, I mean, that's an insane top pair on defense. Both of those guys are going to give you points. Makar's the best offensive defenseman in the NHL. That power play is still going to be lethal. I think if Landon Skog can come back and be that top winger on McKinnon's line, they're going to be really dangerous. Again, I think you're just worried about the Avalanche depth and where secondary scoring is coming from. If they can find that, I think they're going to finish better than 103 points, but I think they're pretty close to a lock to the playoffs, right around where they were last year. The Jets I have coming down a little bit. I still really like the Jets. I like a lot of their pieces, and I think their division is so tough that it's going to be hard, unless you're the Dallas Stars, to find those points. I still have them in the playoffs, and I don't think I have them as one of the 2 wildcard teams, so I don't think any 1 seeds are going to be happy about playing the Jets in the first round. But you can't pick your opponent, and I think the Jets could very well finish. I mean, you can see I have them separated by 1 point with the Avalanche, so I think they very well could get a top 3 spot and avoid facing a 1 seed, but we'll see. And then I have the Wild. I think they're going to rebound a little bit this year. I like the Wild. I will say I think the Central's getting 5 playoff teams, because I don't think the West is good enough to get 4. So I think the Pacific Division. I meant to say in the West. I think the Central Division is getting both wild cards in the West, and I think the Pacific is getting 0. We'll talk about the Pacific soon, but I think it's going to be Wild or Blues to get that last wild card spot in this, and coming out of the Central. Right now I'm leaning Wild, but it wouldn't surprise me if by the All-Star break, where I'm thinking of doing an updated episode, it's the St. Louis Blues. Again, I think those teams are largely similar. They have some good veteran pieces. They're trying to figure out how to remain in contention for the playoffs. And I think really the only thing we can do for them is watch and see what happens. The Coyotes, really, again, the Utah Hockey Club, from here on out, I will address them correctly. I just wanted to get that out of my system. The Utah Hockey Club, again, some nice pieces. They had a better year than they have been having. They used to be the laughing stock, and in some ways they still are. I don't think they're going to improve on what they did last year. I think they're going to just kind of stay the same and probably be at the back end of the lottery and keep trying to build the team. They'll probably be sellers at the trade deadline. They might even not. They might even not do as well as they did last year. And then the Blackhawks. I could see the Blackhawks doing. I think they're going to improve no matter what, just because they have a little bit more free agent room. The Blackhawks young players are getting better. They've been picking lottery for a little bit. But there's a very real possibility to me that they could push for a playoff spot. I mean, I have them easy lottery top 5 pick again, and I think that's probably the most likely scenario. But there's a very real chance where the top 2 lines for them are able to carry them to mid 80s and they're still in playoff contention late season. I think you have to get to at least 90 to have a chance at the playoffs, and I don't think they're capable of doing that. I think they're definitely going to the lottery, but I think there's a chance where they could figure it out as a group of young guys and be right there. Moving on to the Pacific Division. The Canucks won this last year. The Oilers did good just to score 104 points off of that dreadful start to the season. And then after that awful start, fired the coach. They, won 26 of 29, which is absolutely ridiculous. Got themselves in the playoffs and made it all the way to the Stanley Cup final. They almost overcame a 3-0 deficit and won 4 consecutive games, lost in Game 7. The Panthers fought them off. But I kind of respect the Oilers' commitment coming in the next year, which we'll talk about later. The Kings made the playoffs last year. I think they've lost too much. I think that for the Kings, honestly, the best thing for them to do might be to do an expedited 1 or 2 year rebuild and be right there. But to me, that franchise, I don't know if they want to do that. The Golden Knights, the year after winning the winning the Stanley Cup, winning the NHL playoffs, took a step back. 98 points, wild card team, lost in the first round. And I think they're kind of on a similar track this year. They're still kind of losing guys a little bit by little bit. When you spend that much money, you can't keep everybody. And when you don't have the draft picks to draft and develop guys, it gets harder. And I think they went all in to win a championship for so long. They're kind of feeling the effects of that. There's still too much talent to get too bad on that team, but they're in a weird spot for sure. Flames kind of gave up at the trade deadline with trading guys like Lindholm. The Kraken, kind of disappointing after making the playoffs 2 years ago, missing them last year. I think they get a little bit better. The Ducks and the Sharks are both kind of the same. They're both in long rebuilds, tanking. The Ducks have a couple more guys than the Sharks do. The Sharks really don't have anybody. But both of those teams were a non-factor last year. And top 5 picks for understandable reasons. Moving into my predicted standings, I think the Oilers don't get off to that slow start, and I was talking about this commitment. I think they just have made the commitment that they're going to be an offensive first team with some of the signings they've done this offseason. I think the Oilers might be the best offensive team in hockey, which is a big surprise when you have Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, especially when you have both of those guys on your power play. I think you're going to have to outscore them every single night. And I think there's some teams that are going to be capable. For the Oilers, it's going to come down to how much their offense has to do, as in how much the goalie and the defense, how much pressure they can take off. And I think the Oilers are going to get better and better throughout the season and find themselves first in the division, especially because their division is not all that strong. I think the Pacific is the worst division in hockey this year. So, and it's the only one where I think there's 2 or 3 surefire lottery teams. Canucks. I think they're going to finish where they were last year. I love Pettersson as a center. He's getting better, I feel like, every single season. And I think the Canucks are going to be similar to where last year's. I think they might be a little bit worse in the regular season, but I think some of the moves might help them more playoff time, and I think they'll be a little bit better in the playoffs. And I definitely think that they can beat the Golden Knights, who I think are going to finish third. I think the Golden Knights still have too much talent to miss the playoffs altogether, but I don't think they have enough to compete with the upper echelon of teams. I think the Kraken are going to take another year. Maybe the Kraken make a run at the wild card. Maybe they make a run at the Golden Knights. I feel like this division is very much the Oilers and the Canucks, and then it's wide open for whoever wants that third spot. I'm just leading Golden Knights. Kraken and Kings are very similar to me. I've made the playoffs recently. The Kings have been making the playoffs a lot in the 21st century. Both, I think, are kind of looking at like quicker, trying to get more expedited rebuilds, have a mix of veterans and young guys, and we'll see how it works out for them. Both of those teams could make the playoffs this year. Part of the reason why I haven't done there is because I personally think it might be in their best interest to miss the playoffs, which sounds funny, but long term, I think it's true. I think the Flames are going through a rebuild. I don't think it's a secret. And again, the Ducks and the Sharks are going to be the same thing they were last year. Like they're not going to be good. They care more about development of their younger guys. They care more about getting more young guys. Maybe they have some veterans that they trade off at the trade deadline to get more picks. But I don't think we need to expect too much out of the Ducks and Sharks. And really, the Flames, I think, are the same team. They just have a little bit more guys left over because they started their rebuild kind of last year, as opposed to the Sharks and the Ducks have started it a little bit earlier. Here you go. We got a lot on this page. We're gonna focus on the start of season power rankings. This is something I took an attempt at, and then I realized just how difficult it is to rate teams 1 through 32. Just kind of as a non-starter, I will tell everybody, if I had a team making the playoffs, I think they deserve to go to the top 16, because if I have you as a playoff team to start the year, I clearly think you're one of the best 16 teams. And if you didn't, you're 17 through 32, because the league is 32 teams. Half make the playoffs, half don't. So here you can see my start of season power rankings. I do think there's tiers here. I think the 1 through 9 to me are teams that coming into the season I think legitimately have a chance to win the Stanley Cup. And really, there's kind of a 1A and 1B. I think Stars, Oilers, Rangers, Devils, Panthers are 4 because they won it. I think those teams are kind of in their own tier. And then Predators, Avalanche, Maple Leafs, Canucks can win it, but it's going to take a little bit more to go right. But those top 9s are teams that I think feel comfortable calling contenders, absolutely playoff locks. No questions about it. Like, I'm willing to say, assuming they don't get massive injuries, I think they're in the playoffs. And then 10 through 16 to me is teams that I feel good about making the playoffs. I think they have the capability. And really, some of these teams I feel pretty darn good, like the Jets, the Bruins, the Hurricanes. But I think these teams are also good. I think they're playoff caliber, hence why they're in the 16. Really, I care more about the tiers, but like I think the Stars and the Oilers are the 2 best teams in the league. Truthfully, I think those 2 teams meet in the Western Conference Finals, and I think the winner of that probably wins the whole thing, regardless who comes out of the East. But I digress. And then let's get into 17 through 32. I would say 17 to like 25 are teams I think legitimately have a chance to make the playoffs. So when I was talking earlier about massive wildcard battles, I think there's 2 wildcard spots in each conference. And I think the Eastern Conference could legitimately have anywhere from 8 to 10 teams, which would be half to more than half the conference. I truthfully believe it's that wide open and that many teams are good enough to do it. In the Western Conference, I think it's a little bit smaller, but I think there's a lot of teams in the Western Conference that legitimately could make a run at the playoffs. And then I would say starting at the Senators, Canadiens, again, maybe they make the playoffs, but I give it like a less than 20% chance, 10 to 20% chance. I don't think they make the playoffs. Blackhawks are in that group, but like really 26 to 32 are teams that I think are probably heading towards the lottery. It used to be if you didn't make the playoffs, you made the lottery, and I was about to say that, but I guess if it's a 14-team lottery system and 16 teams don't make the playoffs, 2 teams don't get that benefit. But yeah, I think this is kind of the bottom end, which is why I have them at the bottom. We'll see what happens. This could completely end up getting messed up, but we'll see. Again, it's so hard to predict coming into the season before you see these teams playing regular season hockey. And then here, we are going to do some award races. The people I'm picking to win the awards and the runner-ups. Hart Trophy, League MVP. I mean, Connor McDavid, I just feel like he's kind of the one everybody writes in, right? He's the best player in the game for a reason. He's the favorite for the Hart Trophy every year, and he should be. What needs to be said about Connor McDavid that hasn't been said? Kind of carrying this generation, the next generation of hockey on his shoulders as the guy. Runner-up, I think there's a couple of guys that could be in this conversation, but I think with how good I think the Devils are, I think they could very well make a Stanley Cup run. And if the Devils are as good as I think they're going to be, Jack Hughes is absolutely going to be in the talks from going non-playoffs to, here's a little hint what might think happen, Eastern Conference Finals, no less than. And I think Jack Hughes is going, even if just his team is more successful, which I think is bound to happen. I think he's going to put his name up there and a little bit ahead of some of the other competitors. Vezina Trophy. This is another tough one because there's one big name you can see I don't have as the winner or the runner-up, and that is Shesterkin. But again, I said the Stars have elite goaltending. I think the Stars have a really good defense, which is going to help you not see too many high-quality chances. And I'm all in on the Stars this year. I really think they could win the Stanley Cup. I just don't see where the weakness on their team is. And I think Jake Ottinger might have a shot at that trophy this year. Phenomenal goaltender. And like I said, when you have an excellent team in front of you, it really helps you not have to take a lot of shots, not see a lot of high quality opportunities, which could make any goalie look good. And I apologize for the spelling error on the next one. I know that for Juuse Saros, it is Juuse, but in my head, for some reason, it's always Ju. I always spell it Jusse. I apologize to all of my Predators fans and to Saros out there. I mean, this guy arguably could have won it the last 3 years. I mean, Saros is a phenomenal goaltender. I think the Predators have been making the playoffs on his back. I think that changes this year because, like I said, they made a lot of great signings, and he's going to have more help. But less pressure could mean that he's even better and wins the award this year. But I think those are top two contenders, and I think Shesterkin is right behind him. You can never count him out of winning in this award. The Norris Trophy, the best defenseman. I feel like as of recent years, the Norris Trophy has turned into the best offensive defenseman. I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but it is what it is. I think Cale Makar wins another one. I think he's the best defenseman in the NHL. Definitely from an offensive standpoint. You can debate about the defensive standpoint, but Makar is an incredible player. And I think Quinn Hughes is right there behind him. I think Quinn Hughes could actually push Cale Makar. But I think at his best, Makar is nobody's going to beat him for an award. It's not, especially not the Norris Trophy. I do think Quinn Hughes keeps getting better and better, and I think the Hughes family has a second runner-up trophy. Not that you get a trophy as the runner-up, but I think they're finishing second in 2 out of these first 3 awards. Sorry to the Hughes brothers. I think there's Makar and McDavid are a little bit better than the Hughes brothers for these respective awards. Canada beating USA, although I don't know if that's going to happen in the Nations Cup this year. Back on topic, the Selke Trophy award for best defensive forward. I kind of like Alexander Barkov. I think he's going to have to be good and be even better this year if that team wants to achieve the things it wants to achieve. And I also think Roope Hintz is another phenomenal defensive forward. I don't think he always gets enough credit for it. And again, this podcast has almost turned into how much can I celebrate the Stars. I've never even been to Texas. I'm not a Dallas guy, so I have no idea why I'm trying to think of a nice way to say this, but why I am celebrating the Stars so much. But I just really like them as a team. I think Hintz is going to help this team defensively and offensively. Good two-way player. And without Patrice Bergeron in the sport anymore, this award is really kind of wide open, I think. I think Barkov, maybe a little bit of a sleeper, maybe not, but I think Barkov has to put himself in contention for this trophy for them to do what they want to do. Kind of similar for Hintz, but I just think he's kind of underrated. The Calder Cup, the best rookie, and this race took a massive shift. What was it, a week or two ago when Matvei Michkov decided to say he's coming over to the NHL. I think that this is the brightest thing for the Flyers fans. I also kind of think this move was funny when they drafted him 2 years ago because I think everybody thought he was going to go to the Capitals because the Capitals have Ovi, right? Like he's Mr. Russia in the NHL. There was concerns about if Michkov was going to be able to come over to the United States from Russia. And Flyers took the chance, and I think it kind of made a lot of the Capitals a little bit upset. Not that they didn't get a great player in their own right. But I think Michkov might be I think he's the best rookie this year. I think coming into the season, this race was a little bit more open, but I think he's going to kind of take it and run with it. And I think if the Flyers make the playoffs this year, or do make a run, I think he's going to be a massive part of it. And I think Logan Stankoven from the Stars, I think he has a legitimate chance to win this award. And I think if the Stars win the Stanley Cup, it's going to be behind a massive rookie season out of Stankoven. And I think another important thing for rookies is how much of the burden is placed on them. You know, you don't get a Bedard or a McDavid every day where they're going to come in with all the pressure and still dominate. I think sometimes guys need less pressure. And when you have Jason Robertson, Rupe Hintz, etc., on the Stars, it's going to take a lot of pressure off of Stankoven. Maybe he doesn't get the shot volume that somebody like Michkov might, but I think because of how successful his team could be and how good it is around him, I truthfully think he has a legitimate chance at winning this award. And we'll see him in the conversation. I think Michkov kind of runs away with it, but I think Stankoven, if it wasn't for Michkov coming to play this year, would probably be the favorite. Rocket Richard Trophy, not a whole lot to say about this one. I mean, I guess this is kind of a chalk pick. Matthews, the favorite for a reason, right? Like 69 goals last year, was it? Most goals in almost 3 decades, more than Ovi, who was about to break Gretzky's record this year. And David Pastrnak, Pasta, as the Bruins fans call him. I mean, these guys were 1-2 in scoring last year, if I remember correctly. I think that happens again. I think Pastrnak with some of the players that are no longer on the Bruins, he's going to have to score a lot, and I think he's going to succeed. But Matthews knows how to score. He hunts for the goals. He looks for goals every chance he can. I think we're going to get another massive season. I think he probably hit 60 again, and I think he might be the only player this year to hit 60. Art Ross Trophy, for those of you who don't know what that is the most points scored, so most goals plus assists. Again, Connor McDavid, Hart Trophy, Art Ross Trophy, kind of right in for both of those awards. In fact, I think he's more of a guarantee to win the Art Ross than the Hart. Just because you score the most points doesn't mean you deserve the Hart Trophy, but I think McDavid will. Art Ross Trophy, though, overall points winner. I think McDavid has it. I think McKinnon has a sneaky good season this year. I do think the Avalanche might rebound a little bit this year. I think they're going to be healthier, which is going to help them get more assists and maybe open up the ice for him to get a couple more goals. I think McDavid's going to do his normal 40 to 50 goal with like 80 assists or something, whatever crazy number he decides to put up. And then I think McKinnon, again, 40-ish goals with 60 to 70 assists. I without McDavid getting hurt, I don't see how anybody keeps pace. I think you have Draisaitl there as well. But as long as McDavid is healthy, I think the Art Ross Trophy is going to be his to lose. Jack Adams Award, Coach of the Year, for those of you who aren't hip to all the NHL lingo. I have Sheldon Keefe, who is the coach for the New Jersey Devils, and Pete DeBoer as the runner-up coach for the Stars. Again, I think I don't need to keep beating a dead horse with the Stars. I just think they're going to be so good that Pete DeBoer is going to have to be in that conversation. But for the Devils to do what I said they're going to do, let's put it this way. If the Devils make a run to the Eastern Conference Finals and finish top 3 in the conference in points, I think it's Sheldon Keefe's award to lose. I think he should win. And I just very big on the Devils this year, and I think Sheldon Keefe is going to have to be a big part of that. Also doing the President's Cup, and I think the Eastern Conference is a little bit deeper, which sometimes hurts those teams because there's not as many easier games in a deeper conference, so it's a little bit more competitive. But I also think the Stars and Oilers just might be the two most all-around teams. The Oilers are in a horrible division. The Stars are in the best division, but I think they're so good. Again, I think the Stars are the most well-rounded team in the NHL, and I think it's going to be a season-long battle between the Stars and Oilers. It's really a toss-up. I probably could put the Oilers as the winners and justify it by saying their division is so bad, so they're going to get a couple easier games. But at the same time, I just think the Stars are so good. One last time, 2 best teams in the NHL. I think they're going to see each other in the Western Conference Finals, and I think the winner of that's going to be whoever the best of the East is. I think that's going to be the Stanley Cup Final before the Stanley Cup Final. That is all I have for you guys today. I hope you liked the NHL episode. As always, like, comment, and subscribe. It does wonders for creators. It does wonders for me. I hope you like the NHL content. Let me know how you felt about it. Give some of your season predictions. Let's see some hot takes in the comments. Maybe if we can get enough hot takes and comments, we'll do a hot take episode. Come over to X, Ben on _sports. Again, hang out on X. Some days during the week, we get a little bit busy and it's hard to live tweet things, but definitely on the weekends, we're getting a little bit better about tweeting during the week. Come hang out at me, follow me, comment on all my posts over there. Again, I hope you guys liked the NHL content. We might do a little bit more, especially if the feedback is good. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Ben on Sports. Thank you for taking time out of your week to listen. I hope you have a great week. Peace, everybody.